Hello, thank you for joining me once again. Today I am continuing the reading of The Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis. We are on chapter 16, part 2, on page 251 as a part of Complete Visualization. Thank you for all that have subscribed recently. Welcome. And thank you to all the subscribers who are returning and supporting me as you always have along this fabulous journey. So without further ado, let's get started on page 251, Complete Visualization. Okay? Complete Visualization. Essentially, yes, but the more detail you can add to your visualization, the more powerfully it works. Using visualization or imaginations that include more than one of the senses can help. For instance, if you not only visualize what you are going to have for dinner, but you also imagine the smell, the taste, the texture, hear the sounds of the dining room, it will ingrain deeper into your mind. But one of the most powerful adjuncts of detailing a visualization is emotional content. If you can visualize not just the sensation, but also the feelings associated with eating that dinner and being at that restaurant and being with who you are with, you can get very effective planting of that in your mind. We call this method of visualization visualizing with emotional and sensational content. Complete visualization. For obvious reasons, complete visualization is the visualization method used by the children since the beginning in Atlantis. What about combining this way of visualizing things with other techniques? Certainly, using complete visualization is also the most powerful way to supercharge certain meditation techniques. Any technique involving energy visualization lends itself particularly well to feeling the sensations of that energy. For instance, for other meditations may work particularly well by deliberately cultivating your emotional feeling. Meditation is not the only growth technique that can benefit from complete visualization. Using the method as an affirmation or recreating events in mind are highly effective means of changing programming. For instance, if you were afraid of flying, you could visualize yourself flying, feel the sensation, and most importantly, emotionally feel yourself being happy and enjoying the flight. You could do this as a program before flying again, or if you have just had a fearful flight experience, you can use it as a corrective recreation. In a recreation scenario, you would see yourself just as you were, but replace the fear with enjoyment and use complete visualization to imagine how events of the flight would have gone had you been happy instead of fearful. What about fear of death? Yes, even that. Fear of death is just generated from the selfish separate self after all. The same method also applies to any aspect of selfishness that you may wish to change. For instance, if you have discovered you are stingy, stingy, a cheapskate, and you want to change that, then you would use complete visualization to see yourself feeling good about giving or sharing. Let's say you just had a situation come up where a friend wanted to borrow something and you begrudgingly gave them what they asked for and didn't feel good about giving it to them. In such instances, when you recreate it in your mind, you replace the unpleasant begrudging feeling with the feelings of joy that come from giving. If you do this every time a situation comes up or even a negative thought creeps into your head, you will change as long as you really want to. And before long, with consistency and persistence, the negative thoughts won't even creep in anymore. The separate selfishness will have given up. Daydreams. Zayn once caught me daydreaming, but rather than chastising me for it, he explained how to use it to our advantage. Daydreams are an elaborate and deep form of imagining and visualizing. These can be powerfully used to your advantage if you construct an elaborate, complete visualization dream sequence that encompasses what you want to achieve. A warning. Affirmations and visualizations are very powerful and must be respected as such. As was said earlier, an affirmation or thought is like a seed, and it is governed by the universal laws of cause and effect. What you sow, you shall reap. Thus, affirmation should always be consistent with spiritual purposes and ideas. Also, it is better to use affirmations and visualizations only for development of positive traits and positively changing your subconscious programming. And even then, it should be done with the inclusion of a conditional affirmation like, only if it is within the will of the universal spirit. Because with a separate point of view, you don't always know what is really best in a given situation. And you could cause problems by using an affirmation/visualization to do specifically what you think is right. For example, let's say you are feeling a pain in your foot. So you decide to do an affirmation to not feel the pain in your foot. There are many problems with this. Number one, the sensation, the pain, may be telling you something you need to know about the condition of your foot that you should attend to before it gets worse. Number two, you could damage your foot because of the lack of sensation. You could ram it into things repeatedly, accidentally put a chair leg on it, etc. Number three, you may be denying yourself a raise in consciousness from transcending that pain. Number four, also, you could be missing the gift of getting to the source of why you are having the problem in the first place. A person should usually eliminate the cause rather than masking the effect. The same applies to prayer. Mishael warned us of the possible problems during a lecture on affirmations and prayer in the hall of the pyramid. Let's say someone is ill. You could pray for the illness to be removed or healed, but that may not be the best thing for the person's whole being. You may be denying them the raise in consciousness being offered to them through the illness. Healing should be from within, or at least occur simultaneously. Instead of trying to override universal will or asking God, praying to heal someone, the very doing of such a thing egotistically implies that the universal spirit and the hierarchy either doesn't know what is best, but that you do, or it implies that God probably just didn't know about it, which makes no sense either. Or it means you personally needed to ask, or God would do nothing about it. It is all egotistical and absurd. You must be very important, and God must be very inadequate and uninformed for such to be the case. If you are humble and have realized the existence of universal will, then you will probably just visualize the person surrounded in light and affirm your concern and desire for the universal spirit to do whatever is best in that situation, not what you think is best in the situation. There is an old story you may know called The Monkey's Paw. That is a very good allegory for this lesson of asking or praying for specific things. There are many variations to this story, but they all offer the same essential lesson. The story goes something like this. A family comes into possession of a magical monkey's paw that has the power to grant its owner 3 wishes. For their first wish, they asked for a large sum of money. At first, nothing seemed to happen, but then, sometime later, the son is killed at work, mangled beyond recognition as he gets caught in some machinery. The exact amount of money wished for comes in the form of the son's life insurance policy. Days later, after the son has been buried, his mother, who is totally broken up over the boy's death, wishes him brought back to life. The son is given life again, but in the same condition as he lay in the ground. As the son claws at the front door of the house trying to get in, his father, realizing the situation, wishes the son back to the grave and destroys the monkey paw in a fire. The moral: we don't know the details of the consequences of what we wish, pray, or do magic for. Let those who have the full awareness and omnipotent overview make such decisions. Watch what you ask for. You might just get it, and you just might get the unknown consequences. Like I just mentioned, not only does the warning apply to prayer and other forms of wishes, it applies to the practice of magic. When I say magic, most people think of black magic, and some think of white magic. Both types of magic use visualization, affirmation, and possibly ritual to make something happen the way they want. By definition, the practitioner of black magic seeks what they want at all costs, including harming others. It may also be used to deliberately harm others. White magic practitioners generally draw the line at consciously doing anything that would harm someone else. Sometimes people don't consider visualization or prayer to be any kind of magic. After all, it only involves visualization or pushing for what they want that, in their opinion, would be good for them or others, like a promotion or a new car or world peace, or someone who is ill getting better. But it can have the same results as black magic because the practitioners don't know what will need to happen in order to make their desires materialize. The monkey's paw demonstrated how this can happen. Those people didn't want to hurt anyone, but they did. Furthermore, many methods of personal growth and achievement are being touted today that are really only magic in disguise. I knew a banker who told me that everyone at his bank was required to do training in which they would visualize their success. He was actually taught in a seminar to see himself having lots of money, driving a Cadillac, answering calls as a branch manager, etc. He was being taught magic with no concerns or warnings as to its possible ramifications. And with such visualization, there is no predication of how this will be accomplished, or even a safety affirmation clause like, if it is within the universal will. What if the only way he can become branch manager is for another branch manager to have a car accident and die? These kinds of dangerous yet disguised magic techniques are being taught in seminars. They are everywhere. Their success is spawned by the combination of the cleverness of the dark forces and the selfish separate self's desire to maintain control and get what it wants. Thus, people are easily sold on using such techniques. As usual, the self will twist the truth to its own advantage. You hear people talk about creating their own reality, which is true and necessary to realize in order for their inner being to take control, but it is selfishly twisted around so that they think that it means creating such things as a winter house in Aspen, and they don't know or consider what might occur in order to make that happen. They use techniques to attract wealth, not realizing it is black magic couched in a pretty package, and that it can cause disastrous results. They talk about visualizing world peace, but they don't understand that it could mean peace because they're all slaves of a tyrannical world government run by a new Hitler, and all oppositions has been crushed. If the monkey paw story wasn't enough to get the point across, let me give you one more story from my personal experience that makes the point. About 25 years ago, we were moving to a new city. Since we didn't need new cars, we flew there and started shopping for cars. I went to a car dealer, met the owner, and as will sometimes happens, we got into a long and intense spiritual, metaphysical conversation. He was a metaphysician and practiced visualization and magic to get what he wanted. We debated about the right and wrongs of causing things to happen yourself. It was a friendly debate. He argued his point and I argued mine. It is dangerous to take these things into our own hands in the way you prescribe, I said. You can't know all the details that will be involved, and some could cause great harm. To train to be able to make things happen metaphysically is one thing, but we shouldn't use powers directly with our limited viewpoint. He said, I disagree. We totally created our own reality, and if we are not trying to harm anyone else, what is the harm in improving our own life? His argument was perfectly logical, of course, but greater insight goes beyond that logic. I tried to explain the concept of consciousness, hierarchy, and that hierarchical consciousness was superior to ours. I believe we should just allow the hierarchy to work through us if they see that it is necessary. Otherwise, we can make trouble for ourselves and others. He, of course, disagreed. We were about to leave, but unbeknownst to me, a lesson was in the works, in which the hierarchy would try to make the point to him in no uncertain terms. The car dealer walked us out to our rental car. It would not start. It was late, about 11 p.m. by the time we'd finished our discussion along the lines of our debate. He said he could make it start with magic, and it would be of benefit to us. I know such things can be done because I've seen it and done it myself under certain circumstances, but this wasn't one of those circumstances. You're tired and need to get to your hotel, he said. Now look, I can make it start and it will just prove my point. I believe he could have made it start under normal circumstances, but the hierarchy was actually preventing it and he couldn't override it. I knew the car was not starting for some reason other than mechanical. At the time, I thought it was just to show him he wasn't as powerful as he thought, take his ego down a notch, and perhaps give him a chance to learn a little more humility. But you never know. All I knew for sure was that I sensed the power of light were at work, and that the hierarchy didn't want it to start for some reason, and that was good enough for me. There are higher spiritual forces at work here, Ralph. I know you're capable of making it start. You don't have to prove anything to me, but I don't want you to make it start. I am capable of such things myself. And I just do it myself. I knew for certain it was right. But as I said earlier, I won't interfere with what I believe were higher consciousness forces of light taking care of things. He tried anyway. It didn't work. Finally, he gave up and offered to lend me one of the other cars on his lot. It wouldn't start either. Then another, then another, then another. These were not junkers either. They were new and barely used BMWs, Jaguars, Mercedes, Porsches, Corvettes, etc. Yet nothing would start. Finally, after about 20 cars, he was getting a little jangled because of the strangeness of this occurring after our conversation and the ridiculous odds against none of his fine cars starting. I'm really sorry about this. I don't get it. I'll drive you to your hotel myself and have your car ready and delivered to you first thing in the morning. Interestingly enough, his car started, but then halfway to the hotel, it died and would not restart. This is ridiculous. It's blank unbelievable, he said as he pounded his steering wheel in frustration. I'll go call my wife and have her pick us up. I'm really sorry about this, Jon. No need to be sorry. It's out of your control. There's some reason for this. He just looked at me with a frightened, perplexed stare, then walked off. We were in a bad industrial area of the city, and he had to walk 2 blocks to reach a phone. A half an hour later, his wife arrived, and again, we were off to the hotel. When we got near the hotel, we were stopped at a roadblock. There were ambulances, paramedics, police, and flashing lights everywhere. What's going on? We asked the police officer at the roadblock. There's been a chemical spill of some kind. We're getting everyone out. Ralph argued with the police in his typical New York style, but these people have a hotel at such and such, and they've got to get there. The officer responded politely, even though Ralph's comment was rude and stupid. That's right, near the center of the spill. I'm afraid you're going to have to find another hotel because I can't let you in there. It was a serious toxic chemical that was dumped by a tanker truck that was in an accident with another semi. They had evacuated and hospitalized people in and around the area of the hotel. Had the car started and had his car not broken down, we would have been in the midst of it right when it happened. The next day, his cars started easily. Who do you think it would be smarter to defer to regarding the actions and events in your life? Your selfish separate self, or someone or something like a guardian angel? Someone with far greater insight, who has greater wisdom and the best intentions for everyone in mind? I can't tell you how many other examples I've seen of the hierarchy to the rescue. And some of those things I had to look very foolish. It was always worth it, whether I knew the outcome or not. A few last words. Here are a few things I want to stress. The subconscious is also programmed through strong desires and fears. And remember, whatever one holds as an ideal affects the programming. Also see chapter on ideas. Be aware of all these ways your programming can be altered, and be very discriminating as to what you allow to enter and what you allow to remain. But most importantly, one more time, you must really want to change. Okay, that's been chapter 16 of The Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis by Jon Peniel. Excellent read, right? A lot of corrections that I have to make within myself after reading that from the videos that I have made. So from going forth, I too will be doing things differently, all from learning something new, because we are on here to have an experience, to expand, to grow, and to learn to a higher consciousness. So thank you for listening, and until the next time, have the most benevolent day.